Hi, and welcome to Bible Talks with Belinda. I am coming to you today to discuss something that has been kind of lingering in my spirit for a while. I thought about making this video several times. Then I was like, this may come off a little judgmental or insensitive, and then I thought, well, maybe there's somebody else out there that may need to hear this message. So I went ahead and decided to make the video, and just know my heart on this. I'm not a judgmental person, and just know that I do sympathize with people who are in a situation that have no other choice but to resort to extreme measures. So, what exactly am I talking about? I'm talking about car life and van life videos. Now, I was like, in my spare time, I watched a lot of van life, car life videos. It was like a good downtime for me just to and to be honest, I learned a lot. I learned a lot of survival skills and mechanisms from it, and I found them very educational for the most part. Those that were doing it for recreation purposes, I could say, those were the ones more likely like I learned a lot from, right? However, and I do know there is a housing epidemic that has drove people to extreme measures, and this is not what I'm talking about. All right, so but after a while, I began to get a little convicted of watching the videos over and over again. You know how like when you start out watching some, so like the ones that have the vans that are really maybe they for recreational purposes, and they've taken a van and they've converted it to where they go on vacations in it and things like that, but they still have like a home base, right? So no issues with that. The ones that I started to feel conviction about watching were the ones who just basically one day up and decided, I need to do. I just want to live a different life, right? So those videos were the ones that started to kind of go off a little bit. And the Lord began to reveal some things about this whole van life, car life phenomena that's going on, right? What's behind it is what he ministered to me is a spirit of the vagabond, and a spirit of isolation, a spirit of separation. Because I noticed the more, because I for one am a loner, right? Naturally, I'm a loner, and however, I still remain, and it is a constant battle for me to stay connected. So this may not resonate with a lot of people, but I have to force myself, and I have to pray about this to integrate with the community. So I have a church base. I have outside activities that I do always to make and family things and like that. So I always try to increase, hobbies and things like that to keep myself connected, because I can go very long periods of time without any contact. So when COVID hit, I had no problems like hunkering down, staying in the house for months at a time. I have no issues with doing that. If it's just me and the Lord, it's just me and the Lord, right? But the Lord wants us to be integrated into our communities and to work together. That's what we're here for, right? To integrate and to be settled in a place to where we put down roots and we begin to go out and impact our community, right? And to have that connection. So the more I watch these videos, the more of the spirit of isolation and um want to say loneliness. I really don't get lonely, but the more to withdraw started to come on me, and the more of just thinking, oh, I could sell everything and just go, live in a van and travel to different states and do that. That seems more exciting, but the honesty of it, the appeal of it, and the visual of it all, it's appealing. When you see these people, they're living in their vans and they're going from state to state to state and they're having all these experiences. It seems exciting. It seems adventurous, right? But you got to understand there's a lot of danger behind living a life like this, especially for women and young women. And so I feel like a lot of the car videos, the car life videos and the van life videos. Some of them are staged. That's definitely for sure, for money. And I think there was don't take my word for it, but I think a girl in California, she was recently busted for staging it. But the thing is that it is encouraging young people that wouldn't ever do this to do this, right? To go and live in your car and travel by yourself and live out of your car and live this life. And what it is, and like I said before, I'm not shaming people who have been driven into this. They have no other choice. I totally understand. And if that's your situation, just know that I am praying for you and that you get stable housing. But what it does is that it drives people out to do dangerous things. All right. And it's also glorified homelessness, right? So I know, in this time, the times that we live in, there are different terminology that is being put forth to remove, the dreaded word homeless. Now people are saying unhoused, car life or van life or something like that. And so it's not something that we should necessarily be glorifying. It is something that we should be uh, concerned about. All right. So I have listed five spiritual aspects of that's behind the car life van life video. And you may watch the videos and just kind of watch it and take it in, and it's harmless. A lot of them are harmless. Some of them, most of them are harmless, but some of them are, there's a spiritual aspect behind it that people may not be aware of. And I talked about in other my other videos how having the gift of discernment, and things will begin to be revealed to you that others may not see. All right. So point number one, I'm going to go by these one by one and just touch on these little by little and just give it some thought, and just kind of meditate on it, and let me know what you think. So overall, what I want to say is, when the revelation hit me about these videos that I was watching, I realized that the ones that are doing it for a very long time, most of them end up in the desert. And that's when all of a sudden I was watching I've watched like three, four different videos, or following that I was following for a long time. And I realized most of them either end up in the desert, or that's where they are most comfortable at. And so I started to meditate on this, and I realized, like, oh my goodness, I knew it was something behind this, because sometimes I was watching the videos, and when I turn them off, I have a sense of a different type of feeling. It wasn't like it was in the beginning when I started following them, right? All right. So point number one is that like I said, I'm going to go over some of the spirits that I have recognized in the videos. It Number one, um, a spirit of wandering. All right. If you follow the van lifers and the car lifers, when they start out, it's a lot of excitement and joy and anticipation, but with this new lifestyle, and they'll start sleeping in like parking lots of Walmart and hotel parking lots and restaurant parking lots and things like that. But a lot of those establishments are beginning to cut down because of the increase of car life and van life. A lot of people are not really sanitized. They don't know what to do. This is a whole new um, lifestyle, and if you have not equipped your vehicle to for sanitation purposes, as far as relieving yourself or cleaning yourself in any type of way, emergencies or things like that. A lot of these establishments are finding, all this waste and all this trash and everything in the parking lots, and so they're cutting down and they have security. So people are now struggling to find places to rest, and so they become a wanderer, just going from they become restless, just going from place to place, trying to find some place just to rest. See, that is both natural. We see that playing out in the videos when security comes knocking on the door in the middle of the night telling them they have to leave. Well, we see that playing out in the natural, but there's also a spiritual aspect to it, a spirit of restless, because now they have to get up 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they have to leave. That All right, so that's one type of spirit that is being released when people watch these videos. And that's why there is such an increased interest and explosion in people who are living this car life, van life. Now, once again, I think it's very important that I reiterate that this video is not to put down anybody, because I do know there is a housing epidemic that is going on right now, where people cannot find houses. They've been driven out of houses, and maybe they can't find anyone to live with. But whatever you do, living in your car should be the very last resort. If you have family or friends to live with, even if you have to sleep on their couch, I will highly encourage you do that before you go live in your car, your van, because especially as a young woman. And this is really what this video, guys may be able to get away with it. But especially as a young woman, like when I see young women doing it, I feel like there needs to be another voice out here to kind of counteract some of these other videos that are influencing these young people. All right. So the second spirit that is being released when you watch these, just know that everything is spiritual, right? So whether whether you watch something that is seemingly innocent or not, everything is spiritual. All right. It is a spirit of the spirit of fear. Uh, some of the people that have been doing it for a long time, a lot of the people who I were following, um, you know, uh, I noticed over a period of time, at some point in time, there was a attempted break in where within a split moment of time they quit thinking saved their life. Uh, because when you're out, whew, thank you, Lord, when you're out like that, and versus being in a house to living in a car, in a van, you have a heightened sense of awareness that you possibly wouldn't have when if you are in the four walls of your house, and you are in a familiar surrounding, your neighbors, and things like that. Not saying that someone can't break in your house or whatever, because we know those home invasions do happen. But what are the chances of someone breaking? the chances of someone breaking in a car or a van is it's very increased, especially if you're in an area that you're not familiar with. If you're in a parking lot that is very few cars, you see, you become more of a target. And so they live in a heightened sense of awareness and fear. And the ones that I followed for a long time, like I said, they have had a very close encounter. It was one girl I watched where she was being followed, and the guy, she was in the desert. Out of all places, she was in the desert, and a guy had been watching her. He was like up on a hill, and he had watched her, and he came down. He said, hey, I just want to let you know that somebody, a guy was watching you, but she knew it was him watching her. And he's come to her to tell her, I've been watching the guy that's been watching you. You know, how crazy and insane is that, right? But there are other car life, van life people out there that are, they may not be in the same situation that, you know, you may be in, but they may actually be on the run, or, you know, trying to live a low-key life where they've taken on another identity. And, you know, you may run into some people, some unseemly people that you you just don't know. There was another incident where a girl, she had forgot to lock her van up, and she was, I think she was cooking or something, and she was in a parking lot by herself, back into a parking lot, and she just saw a shadow of a man walk past her car. And she said, what did she say? She said, she was doing something, and she said all of a sudden she heard, and I kid you not, the girl said that all of a sudden she was cooking and she was doing something, and then all of a sudden she heard something say, look up. And when she looked up, that was God. When she looked up, she saw a shadow of a man passing her van, and she went and she literally lodged herself in the front seat, and she locked the doors instantly. And as soon as she hit the lock on the door, the guy pulled the doorknob, and he was trying to jiggle it and trying to get into the car. So, like I said, and she had been doing it for a long time. And she said, out of all times that I locked my van, this was one occasion. You know, I've only had my van locked maybe one or two times that I can recall. And this was like the second time that I can recall doing it. And she was just so, and the second time that she did it, mind you, she had been on the road for years. The second time that she had did it, this guy tried to get in her van. And if that guy would have got in her van and she was in that parking lot all by herself, I can only imagine what happened. And after that video, you could tell she kept coming on there, and she kept talking about the incident and how this was a real life incident, and it had really, I could see the her countenance change from the videos on forward. Her countenance changed, and you could tell it was a spirit of fear that had came on her. And I was like, oh man, this is bad right here, you know. So that's another thing that these videos release, because you see, you know, now people are coming saying how they, you know, almost attacked, or, and just think about the videos that we don't hear about, you know, that goes far, and, you know, they don't make a video about it, and then we never know, you know, it may make the local news, but, you know, as far as reaching the masses, you know, you never know. All right, so spirit of fear, that was number 2. All right. Spirit of the fugitive and the vagabond. All right. So this is a big one here. A lot of people some of the people that I touched on this in my second point. Some of the people that are on the road are not doing it for living as a gypsy, or, you know, living this lifestyle as a, a moment in time. Some people are actually on the road and living like this because they are fugitives. You know, there was one video I saw where one guy, he was, you know, he had his van parked, and say they were a row of vans were on this side of the street. This guy, he parked his van on the other side of the street, and he literally had binoculars, and he was looking in each video, voyeurism, like, really trying to see something, and somebody caught them, and then they tried to confront him about it. And one of the guys noticed the guy. He was like, oh, that's that, he used to volunteer at the mission. The guy said, I used to volunteer at the mission. Now let me tell you something, that guy, he is not a good guy. He has some skeletons in his closet, and he has some serious mental and serious he's done harm to people in the past. All right, so you have people who are living as vagabonds. They're living as fugitives. They're going from place to place, and they can't rest. They can't settle down. So it was a scripture that came to mind, and that is Genesis 4:15. So this is where the vagabond spirit initially entered the world here. We know the story of Cain and Abel. When Cain killed Abel, God punished. He punished Cain, and he he cursed Cain. All right, and one of the curses was that he let's see, 4:15. Let's see, my 4:14. After he killed Cain. All right, I'm gonna start at 4:11. It says, "And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth." So that was the curse against Cain. He would be a fugitive and a vagabond because he was a killer. So there are people who are out here living this life. They have done stuff and they have run. Sometimes when you see homeless people, everybody's not homeless because they just fell on hard times, or they have been drug use or something like that. Some of those people have done really bad things, and they have a curse on them to where they are now a vagabond and a fugitive. And some people get caught, and some people don't. But some homeless people are homeless because they have been marked by God. All right. And Cain said unto the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out from this day from the earth, and shall I hid, shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. All right. And the Lord say, therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. All right. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod. Now, if you have seen any of my other videos, I am very big on the Strong's Concordance when looking up names of the people in the Bible and the meaning of different countries and cities and things like that. And if you look up the Hebrew name Nod in the Strong's Concordance Hebrew, uh, it it means wandering. So he dwelt in a land of wandering. His life was just wandering around. So that touches on the first point that I made. A spirit of wondering is released when these videos are being made and sent out to the masses. All right, so God cursed Cain. He was and notice how he said anything that he tried to till the ground should not yield forth its strength. What does that remind you of? And I'm gonna touch on this later. That reminds you of the desert. The desert is not a place that yields forth years for food. It's not a place where farmers or grow be like, hey, I'm just going to uproot my whole establishment from, let's say, Iowa, Kansas, and I'm going to go and in the desert somewhere, Nevada, that nobody there's tens of hundreds of acres out there and I'm going to plant a farm out there. Nobody does that. All right. So that's another spirit that is released, the spirit of the vagabond. And you'll notice some of the people, when if you follow them for a long time, they feel like they don't belong. Like some of them will start to open up after a while. I just felt like I didn't belong. I felt like they'll say stuff like that. I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like it was nothing. It's just like something driving them constantly to move from place to place to place. I'm not saying anything wrong with traveling. I love traveling. I love experiencing different cultures, different people, different cities, different states, and different countries. I love all of that. But when it's something that's driving you internally to where you have to um, um, oh, I've been here for 10 days. I got to get out of here. I got to find something else. That's not normal. Know that that is not normal. All right. Let's see. So that was my third point. Let's see. All right. And my fourth point that I want to make is that I touched on this a little bit, the spirit of isolation and separation. So if you are constantly moving around and you are wondering like this, you are, you're step when, mega milestones are happening in, people's lives and your family and things like that. If you were part of a community, you would, you would be a part of that. But, a lot of people, they say, oh, I missed out. I wasn't able to make it here because I was way across the country. I couldn't get the money to, gas was high and I couldn't make it back to, my family's thing because, they make it seem like they're saving money, but actually, if you, and maybe some of them are, but if you don't have a steady job and you're moving from place to place and you're doing menial work and you spending all this money on, gas and takeout and all this stuff like this, you know, how much money can you really save? And so that makes them even more isolated and withdrawn to themselves to where they, you know, it becomes a place of comfort, and you should never be comfortable in that state. So the other Bible verse I want to go over is Psalm 68:6. And I think this is going to all wrap it up to so you all know where I'm coming from on this. Psalm 68:6. And so this is what God wants for us. Ultimately, He wants for us, even for those who feel like you can't find any connection in your local community, or you feel like you don't belong, or you can't bond, you can't connect. Pray to God to ask you to lead you to a church home, or to give you surrogate father, a surrogate mother, or a surrogate sibling. I feel like I've never had a brother or whatever, and so the Lord over the years sent surrogate brothers to me to be a brother to me, and I still call them my brother to this day. Life, right? I grew up without a father. He's brought surrogate fathers in my life over the time that's kind of took me under their wing to counsel me and to kind of raise me, like to kind of guide and mentor me like I was their daughter. Brothers that have offered like protective. Instructions and things like that. If I need something, they're there to help me and encourage me and things like that. And mothers, surrogate mothers, like it's people. God will begin to send you people like that, because if there's a void in your life, of course God fills all voids, but He wants us to connect with other people, and for that to be there, and usually they're right there in your community, right? So that's why you have to go out and connect to people, and once the void is filled within you, then you can go out and you can begin to help fill the void in other people's lives, right? All right, so that's Psalm 68:6. And notice how it says that, but the rebellious dwell in a dry land. What is a dry land? A dry land is a desert place, right? It all ties back to the first point that I made, that I noticed that a lot of the YouTubers that I was following, that a lot of them end up, if they've been on it for a long time, doing it a long time, they either end up in the desert, or they find themselves constantly going back to the desert, because that's the place where they felt most at peace and at ease. And if you ever find yourself in the desert, or wanting to just dwell in a desert like that, that's a big problem. And that's when I woke up. That's when I was kind of under the spell of the sway of it all. But that's when I woke up, when I saw all of those YouTubers. I noticed a trend with all the YouTubers that I was following. All right. And so what is the desert? The desert is no man's land. Nobody owns, there's parts of the desert that, nobody owns, and nobody can own it, because it's not a place that is able to sustain life. Right. All right. So there's miles and miles where there's no water, and there's no access to water. They're not running no water out there. No water lines, no power lines. There's a place of no life. You notice in the desert there's lack of shelter. All right, and I remember I was watching one video. It was so hilarious, funny. And a guy, he was living out in his van, and he was in the desert. Like I said, a lot of these people end up in the desert. And the guy said, I was standing outside, and I think he said he had just eaten his breakfast or something, and he was standing beside some kind of plant. Now, I don't know how, what the distance he was from the plant, but a good distance, maybe, probably about that far apart from the plant. And he said that all of a sudden, he said this plant, I don't know if it's some kind of cactus or something like that, but it began to reach for him and and attack him. I've never seen anything like this, and I've never experienced anything like this. But he said the plant literally tried to attack him. A plant. So think about that. Like, everything is out to get you. Everything is out to kill you in the desert, because it is non-life sustaining. And if something is alive, to find it, it is trying to grab a hold of anything, an insect, a person, or anything, to suck the life out of that, so it can sustain its life, right? So I thought that was just hilarious. He was like, I think he came to a realization, he's like, I got to get out the desert, because the desert, he said, the guy, even in the video, he said the desert is designed to kill you. It's not for deliverance. So it was absolutely hilarious, because you could tell he was traumatized by that event. So when the Bible, you'll notice a consistent theme when it talks about a dry place, or desert place. It's we have places like that here, to give us a visual, to show you that these are not meant to sustain life. And so when you put that in contrast to, you pray the Lord's Prayer. What do you pray? You pray Psalm, not the Lord's Prayer, but Psalms 23. Uh, the Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. Right. So, think of the contrast between a green pasture in a desert land. He lead me beside still water, gives you peace, gives you rest. Or the wilderness, like the children of Israel, they were wandering around and circling around in the wilderness, but God had to sustain them in the wilderness. He sustained them with a pillar of fire by night, and a cloud by day. And so he fed them with manna. because you can't sustain in the desert. In the desert, there's all kind of wildlife running around, out there to kill them, and things like that. So God had to sustain them in the wilderness. And so he wants to take you out of the wilderness, out of the dry land, out of the desert, and move you forward to a land that flowed with milk and honey, green pastures, to where, it's bountiful, it's plentiful. And notice how when they were in the desert, what were they doing? They was just circling around. They kept circling for 40 years. So these people who are living in these car life, van life, and so to you, they make it seem all glorious and everything, but what they're actually doing is that they're circling. They're just circling, and they're circling, and they're circling. And God wanted to, just like the children of Israel, and so God wanted to take them to Canaan, where it was a land that flowed with milk and honey. And what he wanted to do is he wanted to take them and to settle them and to establish them there, and to establish borders, and to be able to live at peace and to be at rest. Now you're not out and exposed here, all for the wild to overtake you, right? All right, so you can't stay in the desert. Even the children of Israel, they could not stay in the desert unless God provided for them. Remember when Moses, they started complaining about the water? It was no water, and Moses struck the rock with his rod, and water came out. God had to supernaturally intervene, because if not, they would have just died of thirst. All right. Let's see. In the desert, there's no community, right? There is something that's called the Bureau of Land of Management, and a lot of the YouTubers talk about, how you can, stay at the Bureau of Land of Manage, a spot like that in the desert, and that I think they can stay for a total of 14 days. Then they have to leave, and they'll come back, but they don't have to pay anything. And like I said, if people who are real, if they can afford to do this, they are actually, in RV parks where there's adequate security, there's adequate sanitation, and a sense of more so of a community than being out in the desert. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about a different set of people here. And so these people, they'll be out in the Bureau of Land of Management. Not saying that everybody's out there is like that, but what you'll see is just people that are just passing by. You're going to run into other passerbyers that are wondering as well. All right. And then you're going to get a false sense of community. Excuse me, I'm getting over a very bad sinus infection. All right. So, yeah. So they may go from this state to this state to this state, and all these different places. And what eventually happens, if I notice, like, once you'll keep watching them, right? Some of them do get some of them really do live this life, and maybe they're able to monetize off of YouTube for whatever it's worth or whatever. But what you'll begin to realize is that they'll never move forward, like, to be able to grow. You'll just see they have this kind of fantasy type mindset about it all. And if you can watch, like, their first video to their last video, say they've been doing it for maybe 2 years, and from the time you watch their first video to their last video, some of them do look a little more. You can kind of see a difference in their appearance, because it's a hard life, right? But they're still in the same place, which is interesting. If they may have visited all 50 states, but at the end of the day, if you watch the first video to their last video, it seems like they're still in the same place, like they haven't moved. They may have moved in their car, but it's like life has just, to a degree, stood still, versus putting down roots somewhere and actually doing something, finding out what your purpose. That's another thing. This is a purpose and destiny stiller. Whew, thank you, Lord. Because it's as if this is not the will for anybody's life. We saw how Cain was cursed to be a vagabond, a fugitive, and he lived in Nod, which is a land of wandering around. So if you are constantly moving and you're constantly wandering around, you never come to the realization, okay, what is my purpose? Why am I here? What am I doing? Because you always in a sense of you always have something driving you to move, to go somewhere else. So if you don't put roots down, it's really hard for you to discover what your purpose and your destiny is. Because if you are maybe working on a job, you may say, oh, this is not for me, I need to do something else. And the Lord may lead you to do something else, but he may lead you, you may be supposed to be doing something in the community that you're in, or he may want to uproot you to a different city, to make an impact there. Maybe your calling is somewhere else. So, but if you're just circling and wandering around, notice how the children of Israel, they could have just, sat in the desert, but you cannot stay. You have to move in the desert, All right. And if you read Genesis 4 very carefully, the account of Cain, when God put the curse of the vagabond and the fugitive spirit, and him wandering around like that, he was in distress. He was like, oh my gosh, I've been cursed like this. And someone, because I've been cursed as a fugitive and vagabond, when someone sees me, I'm exposed. He lived in the east of Eden, outside of Eden, where there was family and community. But when he did this, now he left. He was like cast out from the community, and he had to leave. And he knew the severity of this. He was like, oh, if when I leave here, I'm going to be marked, and they're going to kill me, because I'm going to end the video here. I think I've touched on all the points. Just to reiterate, the spirits that are being released by some of these car van life videos is the spirit of fear. All right, it's a spirit of wandering, a spirit of isolation, a spirit of separation, a spirit of the vagabond, and a spirit of fugitive. And just overarching all of that is a dry place, a dry land. All right. So if you find yourself in a situation, if you know, I think I said several times, this is not to condemn anyone, but I think living in your car, in your van, for it should be a very last resort that you have to go to. You've exhausted all other resources, and this is something that you have to do in order to get yourself back on the feet. I've read stories where people have actually lived in their car for 2-3 years, but it was something temporary where they had to do it, but their ultimate goal was to get out of the car and back into stable housing. And most of those people, they're not filming their hardship. The people that are putting it online, some people are putting it online and they are sharing their hardship. Okay, I'm here because of I couldn't get housing, is everything is through the roof. I'm not talking about these people. I'm talking about the people that are glorifying this and who are saying that this is my life, this is a lifestyle, and this is how I want to live. I'm not talking about RVers. RVers are a totally different category. Usually, if you can afford a tricked out RV, you can afford to live in an RV park. And most RVers, they stay in those communities for an extended period of time. They may live there for 6 months to a year and move somewhere else. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the car life, van life people who glorify this as some type of some type of new way of life that is sustainable, and it's not. So I'm going to end the video on that note, and I want to say, like, I want to end this video on the note that I always end it in my videos on, to say that salvation is a gift and it's free to everyone, and I highly encourage you to accept the gift that is given to us through Jesus Christ. Give your life to Christ. You know, if you find yourself in a situation like this, you know, or you can identify and relate to any of these, you know, pray about it. I've found myself in some of these situations, in some of these spirits that's tried to come on to me, and with discernment, I can pick it up and I can pray those things off of me. So I'm going to end this on this video, and just know that God loves you, and so do I. God bless.